If your roses handed you plenty of green last summer and barely a single bloom, the pruning is almost always the culprit. And there are 6 mistakes quietly doing the damage. Before I get into it, if you want a garden that actually rewards the work, subscribe and stay with me. It genuinely helps. So why all leaf and no flower? 9 times out of 10, it started the moment you picked up the secateurs. Here is the first mistake, and it is the most common one of the lot. The well-meaning autumn tidy-up. The bush looks messy after a long summer, so out you go in October, cut it right back, and feel wonderfully organized about it. That tidy feeling is exactly the problem. Every one of those fresh cuts is an open wound, and you have just handed the whole lot to the first hard frost of the year. The frost bites into that soft, exposed tissue, the dieback creeps down into the stem, and the plant limps into spring already weakened before it has grown a thing. Modern bush roses do not want to be cut in autumn. They want their main prune in late winter, roughly February into March, when the buds are just starting to swell, but the plant has not yet surged into growth. Cut then, and the wound heals into rising energy instead of being handed to the cold. Same plant, same secateurs, just a different month. That change alone gives you a stronger, healthier bush before you have fixed anything else. Right. Mistake 2. This one is quieter, and almost nobody notices they are doing it. Cutting to the wrong bud. Look closely at a rose stem, and you will see plump little swellings sitting just above where a leaf joins. Those are the bud eyes, and each one is a future stem waiting to happen. Whichever way that bud points is the exact direction the new growth will head. So before you make a single cut, look at which way that bud is pointing. It decides where every new stem goes. Here is the rule that never changes. Cut just above an outward-facing bud, one that points away from the center of the plant, and the new growth heads out into the open air where it belongs. Cut above an inward-facing bud instead, and you send that new stem straight back into the middle of the bush. Do that a few times and you build a congested, airless middle, stems crossing and rubbing, no light getting in, no air moving through. And that still, damp air in the center is precisely the condition that breeds disease. The outward bud is not a fussy little detail. It is the difference between a rose that breathes and a rose that quietly rots from the inside. So now you have got the 2 things most people never get right. The timing, late winter instead of October, and the bud, outward facing, not inward. You are already ahead of most gardeners on your street. But there is one more thing hiding in that same cut, and it undoes both of the others if you get it wrong. It is not when you cut, and it is not which bud you choose. It is the single spot where your blade actually lands above that bud you picked so carefully. And the margin is tiny. We are talking about 5 millimeters. Get it wrong. Land your blade in the wrong place or the wrong direction, and the dieback does not stop at the cut. It creeps straight down the stem, past the very bud you were trying to protect, and kills it. All that care over timing, all that care choosing the outward bud, gone. Because of 5 millimeters. So let me show you exactly where that blade has to land. 5 millimeters. That is the whole margin between a cut that heals clean and one that rots back into the bud you chose so carefully. Leave a long stub sticking up above that outward-facing bud and it has nowhere to seal, so it browns, then it rots, and the dieback creeps down the dead stub, past the bud, into living wood, and quietly undoes everything you got right. The timing, the outward bud, all of it. Gone. Because the blade landed a couple of centimeters too high. So here is where the cut actually lands, about a 1/4 inch above the bud. 5 millimeters, no more than that. Close enough that the stem can heal right up to the bud, far enough that you are not nicking the bud itself. And you slope it, roughly 45 degrees, sloping away from the bud so rain runs off instead of pooling on the wound. That angle is not garden theater. Water sitting on a flat, open cut is exactly how rot gets a foothold. Tilt the cut, and the rain sheds down the low side, well clear of the bud, and the wound dries and seals. That is the whole trick to a cut that heals. Get those two things right. 5 millimeters, 45 degrees, and the cut closes itself. Get them wrong, and you have just planted the dieback yourself. Which brings me to the 4th mistake, and it is the one almost nobody thinks about. You can land that cut in exactly the right place and still bruise the plant, if your secateurs are blunt. A sharp blade slices clean through the cane. A blunt or dirty one crushes it. Run your thumb along the blade. If it drags instead of bites, you are bruising every rose you touch. And a crushed, ragged cut is not really a cut at all. It is a bruise. Torn fibers, a flattened stem, an open wound that seals slowly if it seals at all. You will see it within a fortnight. The tip going brown, then gray, then that soft rot working its way down toward the very bud you saved. And a bruise on a rose is an open door. Blackspot and dieback do not need much of an invitation, and a ragged wound hands them one wide open. Sharp, clean blades fix all of it. A crisp cut seals fast and locks blackspot and dieback out before they can settle in. Get a decent pair of bypass secateurs, keep them sharp, and wipe the blades clean between plants. One quick pass with a cloth is enough. Because if one rose is carrying disease, dirty blades carry it straight into the next healthy stem you cut. You are not just pruning. You are either spreading trouble or shutting it out, and a wiped blade is the difference. That smell of clean-cut green wood, no rot in it. That is the smell of a job done right. Quick one while we are here. Tell me in the comments which rose you are fighting with this year. A leggy climber or a sulking hybrid tea. And if this is useful, a subscribe means a lot. Back to it. So look where you are now. You know when to cut in late winter. You know where, 5 millimeters above an outward-facing bud, sloped away so the rain runs off. And you know what to cut with. A sharp blade wiped clean. Every cut you make heals like it should. The kind of cut a seasoned gardener could look at and nod. You could do every single one of those things perfectly, and still strip one of your roses completely bare. Because there is one difference between the roses in your garden that decides everything, whether that confident spring prune feeds the flowers or slices off every single one the plant had planned. Old wood versus new wood. So here it is. The whole thing turns on one word, which wood. Hybrid teas and most modern shrub roses flower on new wood. This year's growth. Every bloom you get next summer comes off a stem that does not even exist yet. So when you cut one hard in late winter, you are not robbing it of a single flower. You are clearing the way for the fresh, strong shoots that will actually carry them. A hard spring prune on a hybrid tea does not hurt it. It feeds it. Now flip that right over. Ramblers and a lot of the older climbers do the exact opposite. They bloom on old wood, last year's stems. The long canes they threw out this summer are the very canes that will hand you flowers next year. So take the secateurs to a rambler in spring, cut it back hard the way you would a hybrid tea, and you have just sliced off every flower it had planned. All that green. And come June, nothing. Not sure which one yours is? If it flowers once, early, on long, arching canes, treat it as old wood and keep your blades off it in spring. A rambler wants a light tidy after it finishes flowering in summer. Take out a few of the oldest canes, tie in the new ones, and leave the rest alone. That is it. Not a spring haircut, a summer tidy. And then there are the ones that sit right in between. David Austin shrub roses. These do not want the hard chop of a hybrid tea or the hands-off of a rambler. They want gentle shaping, reduce them by about a third, keep that lovely natural rounded frame they build on their own, and let them fill back in. Shape them. Do not butcher them. Get that one match right. Old wood against new, and half the roses that were giving you leaves and nothing else will start giving you flowers again. Which brings me to the last mistake, and it is the quiet one. Leaving the dead, the damaged, and the crossing wood standing in the middle of the bush. Here is why it matters. A congested center, stems packed in, rubbing, crossing over each other, traps damp, still air right in the heart of the plant. And damp, still air is exactly what blackspot lives for. That is the black-flecked yellowing leaf you were fighting all last summer. It does not come out of nowhere. It breeds in the airless middle you never opened up. So open it up. Take out anything dead. You will know it. It is brown and dry and snaps instead of bends. Take out anything spindly, anything thinner than a pencil, because a stem that weak will never carry a decent flower anyway. And take out any two stems that are rubbing or crossing, because every place they touch is a wound waiting to happen. Cut back to the strong, healthy framework and let light and air pour straight through the center. Stand back and look into the middle of the bush. If you cannot see daylight through it, you have more cutting to do. That is the whole test. Daylight through the center. Do that, and you have locked blackspot and dieback out for the season, because they simply cannot get a grip in a bush that breathes. So look at what you are actually holding now. Right timing, late winter for the modern bush roses when the buds are just swelling. A clean angled cut, 45 degrees, a bare 5 millimeters above an outward-facing bud, so the new growth heads out into the open and not into a tangled, airless middle. Sharp, clean blades that seal the wound instead of bruising it. The prune matched to the rose in front of you, old wood or new, and a center opened right up so the whole plant can breathe. That is not 6 random tips. That is one plant, cared for properly, from the first cut to the last. Give your rose those things it has been quietly asking for all along. The right time, the right cut, the right match, and room to breathe. And next summer this same bush, the one that gave you nothing but leaves, will hand you more flowers than you know what to do with. So sharpen your blades. Pick your first outward-facing bud, and go and give that rose the prune it has been waiting for.